I just bought streaming rights for a hit Justin Bieber song for $25. I'm gonna tell you how and why I did it, but this video is about a lot more than that. This is about a much bigger topic, which is how a certain new technology could transform the music business, and how that same technology could revolutionize many other parts of our economy as well. So let's get into it. You see, the music industry has been on a roller coaster ride. For much of the history of recorded music, the sale of physical copies of music, like singles and albums, was the way in which artists made money from their craft. And though the format of those physical copies of music has changed over time from vinyl records to cassette tapes to compact discs, for many decades sales were going up and things were good for the industry. But that came to a screeching halt around the turn of the century. What happened then? Well, as you probably know, the internet took off. All of a sudden, consumers weren't interested in buying CDs anymore. They were more interested in downloading pirated music off the internet using file sharing services like Napster, Kazaa, and LimeWire. For a long time, the music industry tried to fight this. It filed lawsuits against the file sharing services and even individual users of those services, ordinary people like you and me. But it was a lost cause. Every time one file sharing service shut down, another one would pop up in its place. And music fans continued to share and download MP3 files even in the face of legal threats from the music industry. For the next decade and a half, revenues from the sale of recorded music plunged. From a high of $14.6 billion in 1999 to $6.7 billion in 2015. Things looked hopeless for the music industry. The lawsuits weren't working, and an attempt to sell digital music files directly to consumers through iTunes and other digital media stores wasn't enough to offset the lost revenue from piracy. But then around the middle of the 2010s, something changed. Streaming services, like those offered by Spotify and Apple Music, started to take off. All of a sudden, for a flat monthly fee, you could get access to all of your favorite songs using a sleek user interface. There was no need to mess around with clunky file sharing services and risk getting your computer infected with a virus. Pirating music just didn't make sense anymore. So streaming killed widespread music piracy, and it also transformed the business model of the music industry from one focused on the sale of physical copies of music to one focused on subscriptions. That helped to bring the industry back from the brink. In 2021, thanks to streaming, recorded music revenues finally surpassed their 1999 peak. Today, over 2/3 of the revenue from recorded music comes from streaming. So that's good news. Revenues for recorded music are growing again. But it's not all rosy. Yes, streaming has done a lot to compensate artists for their work. And streaming, along with social media, has done a lot to give smaller artists a chance to succeed and make a living creating music. For instance, over 9 million people have uploaded music to Spotify, including over 3 million people who have uploaded at least 10 songs to the platform. But just like in the era of physical music, it's still the case that most of the attention and money flows to the top artists. In 2022, only 213,000 artists on Spotify had released at least 10 songs and attracted at least 10,000 monthly listeners. An even smaller number of people, 57,000, had generated at least $10,000 in royalties that year. So millions of people have uploaded music to Spotify, but only a small percentage of those are making a decent amount of money off of their songs. Even concerts, which is a source of revenue that many artists use to supplement the money they get from recorded music, is top heavy, with 1% of performers taking 60% of concert ticket sales. So if you're successful enough to be a top artist, sure, you can make a living creating music. But most artists can't. Which raises the question, how might this change? What can be done to give more artists a chance at success? Well, to answer that question, let's go back to what I talked about at the start of this video, how I bought streaming rights for a Justin Bieber song for $25. This is the song. It's called Company, and it was released in 2015. It has over 500 million streams on Spotify and nearly 700 million views on YouTube. So I bought streaming rights to this song off a marketplace called Another Block, which is a platform that sells music NFTs. Now, I know a lot of people roll their eyes when they hear about NFTs or anything to do with crypto, and rightfully so. The industry is filled with scams and grifters. But this is a case where the primary technology underlying crypto, the blockchain, can add a lot of value. You see, what I bought on Another Block are rights to a share of the future streaming revenue from the song Company. Specifically, the one token I bought represents 0.0005% ownership of the song's streaming rights. I know that sounds small, but it's still pretty cool. By buying this token, I'm essentially a partial owner of the song, which is something I could never have been in the past. Now, Justin Bieber wasn't directly involved with these NFTs. Music streaming rights are extremely complex, and everyone including musicians, songwriters, publishers, record labels, and a host of other parties often hold rights to the royalties generated by a song. In this case, one of those rights holders, a producer on the song named Accident, decided to sell the future revenue associated with his rights in the form of crypto tokens. There were 2,000 tokens sold, and like I said, each one represents 0.0005% of streaming rights, which means that all the tokens combined have rights to 1% of the song's streaming revenue. So whenever streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music pay royalties for the song, some of that goes to another block who passes it on to token holders like me. This is cool because a lot of the criticism that's been aimed at crypto is that it's useless or that it's all speculation. I'm sure you saw a couple years ago how tokens associated with pictures of apes were selling for millions of dollars. Well, this is different. You have real cash flows from music streams flowing to holders of music NFTs. Now, Company isn't the only song whose streaming rights have been turned into tokens. Royal, another platform focused on music NFTs, has sold tokens tied to songs from Nas, the Chainsmokers, Diplo, and many other artists, both big and small. The neat part about the tokens sold by Royal is that they sometimes offer a lot more than just the revenue associated with music streaming rights. Some artists give token holders additional benefits like merch, concert tickets, access to private listening parties, and even meet and greet opportunities. So this is a new way for artists to connect with their biggest fans directly. I've talked a lot about well-known artists like Justin Bieber and the Chainsmokers, but especially for smaller artists, this ability to raise money directly from fans and then have those fans be co-owners of their work is huge. It takes some power away from record labels and puts it in the hands of artists who have a new way to fund themselves without having to give up a ton of upside to big companies. At the same time, it makes music royalties easier to buy, sell, and price, making them more valuable, both for the artists who sell them as well as those who buy them, including buyers who are fans, as well as buyers who aren't necessarily fans but who want to invest in an artist and potentially profit from their success. So I'm excited to see how music NFTs evolve. But as I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't just about music. Blockchain, which again is the primary technology underlying crypto, can revolutionize many parts of our economy. It's a completely new type of computing system that's operated not by one entity like a person, company, or government, but by an entire network of participants. And this decentralized design gives it features that you don't get with more centralized systems. Anyone, for instance, can use Ethereum, the world's most popular general-purpose blockchain, to create and engage with what are known as smart contracts, which are essentially computer programs that run automatically as people interact with them. These smart contracts also store data permanently, and that's what makes blockchain so revolutionary. Data is stored forever in a computing system that's open to everyone and is operated collectively by many participants. This creates a level of trust in blockchains that you might not have in more centralized systems, where one entity can single-handedly change things. We've all heard of situations where people have gotten kicked off platforms, whether rightly or wrongly, for things they've said or done. Worse, in some countries, governments have confiscated people's assets without due process. That's the type of risk that blockchains could potentially reduce significantly. Given the characteristics I just talked about, blockchains are the perfect place to track the ownership of assets. Assets that can be represented as tokens on the blockchain. You can use smart contracts to create tokens that represent nearly anything. That includes purely digital assets like cryptocurrencies and items in video games, or real-world assets like music streaming rights, physical property, or fiat currencies. These assets can't just be stripped away by the arbitrary whims of a company or a government. So people have confidence that they'll continue to own them as long as they want to. That's why a lot of people look at blockchains as property rights systems. Another great thing about tokenized assets is they benefit from the unique properties that blockchains enable, like interoperability and composability. For instance, I could take a music NFT that I bought on Royal and put it up for sale on another marketplace like OpenSea. Or I could use the NFT as a ticket to get into an in-person or online event. I could also use it as collateral for a loan from a blockchain-based lending application. Any app could potentially see that I own this music NFT and interact with it and with me in interesting ways. The possibilities are endless, and only with time will we see the completely novel experiences that are created on the back of blockchains. With that said, even though blockchains hold a lot of promise, they aren't the solution for everything. In many cases, a more centralized system works just as well or better than a blockchain. If the priority is speed, cost efficiency, and control, then a blockchain probably doesn't make sense. Even when it comes to music royalties, there are traditional competitors to NFT platforms like Royal and Another Block that work just fine. The big one is Royalty Exchange, which has been facilitating the sale of music royalties for over a decade. I've never used it myself, but they have an extensive catalog of music rights for sale on their marketplace. There's no crypto tokens involved, so you don't get the benefits of the blockchain that I discussed earlier, but you can still use their marketplace to buy and sell royalty rights. You just can't easily transfer those rights off of the platform or use them for anything else like you could if those rights were in the form of tokens on the blockchain. So we'll see what happens. As time goes on, I do think we're going to see the ownership records of an increasing number of assets, both digital and physical, on the blockchain. But there's still a lot of work that has to be done before this technology can become really mainstream. Hope that helps, and if you want more insights on business, the economy, and investing, hit that subscribe button.